It takes a village to raise a child. This idea was brought to the forefront in Hillary Clinton's book derived from the old African proverb, which is the perfect synopsis of what a multi-organizational approach would entail when discussing prevention of juvenile delinquency. Reduction and prevention of delinquency is the goal with most juvenile justice institutions. Today I would like to talk about reducing and preventing delinquency in Phoenix juveniles. We'll discuss how it all began, what programs are working, what programs are not, and what I propose would be the best course of action to help juveniles in the Phoenix area stop delinquent acts before they're even started. In any attempt to address an issue efficiently, it's very important to understand the history and scope of what the problem is you're dealing with. So today we're just going to focus on Maricopa County, Arizona, and juvenile delinquency within that area. Approximately 30,000 juveniles in Maricopa County were charged with a deviant act in 2015. That is 30,000 adolescents that were charged with some sort of crime in the span of 1 year. With that knowledge, let's take a step back and start at the beginning, find out how juvenile law actually became about in the United States. The first juvenile justice system came about in Cook County, Illinois in 1899. Although it didn't take long for many other states in the country to follow suit in implementing juvenile justice systems. These systems came about to address the deviant acts that juveniles committed while incorporating the concept that youth's minds are different than adult minds and are not as developed as adults are when committing crimes. This idea is important to help you understand that at this time, punishments were changed to accommodate the idea of a younger mind, and eventually, however, many treatments and sentencing approaches that address youth are still modeled after adult practices, just on a lesser scale for adolescents. One notable difference was in the 1970s, our U.S. Supreme Court stated that juvenile proceedings would not be jury-based as adult trials are. This procedure still stands to this day, and juvenile dispositions are decided by the court itself rather than a jury. Why do these children commit crimes? Through research, we've found out that there are many reasons juveniles become involved in delinquent acts. These can include poverty, learning disabilities, school issues, family disruptions, or using the delinquent act to fill a desire, such as money, sex, or excitement. Some other causes could be ill-equipped parents who may have come from insufficient or incomplete education, lack of consistent or substantial employment, dependency on welfare system or domestic violence. Any of these situations could cause a juvenile to decide to take matters into their own hands, maybe to engage in some type of theft or dealing drugs, selling stolen materials, all in an attempt to gain financial independence to assist themselves or their family out of a poverty-stricken situation. The causes of delinquency, unfortunately, look a lot like the reasons they commit the crimes. Not having a stable employment for parents can put a lot of pressure on teenagers who just want to fit in with others. Incomplete education or lack of importance put on a child of what education should mean in their life can also cause them to feel like deviant acts can be more important or take precedence over wasting their time in school each day. There are so many reasons and issues that can cause delinquency. We would not have a time in one day to go over each one. Mental health issues, crossover youth from dependency on welfare system into the juvenile justice system is a big issue. Children living in domestic violence, all of these can be issues that cause delinquency. Now that we know how juvenile court system came about and some of the factors that contribute to delinquency, let's take a look at the protective factors against delinquency. The domains that exist as the source of both the protective and risk factors include individual attitude, family life, school, peers, and the community. Protective factors within those domains include things such as pro-social involvement that offers both reward and opportunity for the youth, minimal subjection to substance use, positive relationships and role models in their parents, or establishing bonds with positive adults within their community. Other protective factors as seen in the table are an intolerant attitude towards deviance. Making it clear to the juvenile that there will be a zero tolerance in any type of deviant behavior is one step in the right direction. Setting boundaries and guidelines so there are no misconceptions about what is acceptable and what is not assists a child in making appropriate decisions. Positive social interactions with their peers is another. This protective factor allows children to have great interactions with people their own age, finding positive activities to engage in as opposed to delinquent behaviors. Within the family system, having warm, supportive relationships is always important. It's also important to have a parent's involvement within the friends of what their children spend time with. Having the parents understand what type of people that their children are hanging out with gives them insight on what type of activities might be going on when they're out of sight. Additionally, this benefit allows those children who interact with your children to know exactly what is expected and that you will not tolerate that behavior. So when your child is with them outside of your presence, those friends of your children are aware of what you would expect from your child. School systems and communities, protective factors line up with recognition for involvement in conventional activities, any type of after-school activities, sporting, quiz bowls, any type of club, leadership activities, community activities such as Boys and Girls Clubs, after-school programs. All of these are great protective factors for juveniles. As with most things in life, there are positive and negative characteristics of current approaches that address delinquency. There are multiple different types of treatment facilities that help youth gain knowledge and skills to re-enter their communities as positive members of society. These treatment facilities, along with positive reintegration into the community, are restorative justice practices. The overall mindset and goal of these programs aim to enact punishment with the ultimate goal of bringing victims and offenders together in the end, in an attempt to make the victim whole again and redirect negative behavior and attitudes of the offender. Allowing the offender and the community to come together after restoration has been completed is a large goal for all of the restorative justice programs. Despite the behavioral treatment program being the core focus, other services are available such as substance abuse specific treatment, sex offender specific treatment. However, prevention in all of these is the goal. Therefore, it is paramount that these available programs take precedence. The state of Arizona has rehabilitation centers in place to assist juvenile delinquents. One of these centers is the Arizona Department of Juvenile Corrections, or ADJC. They serve a twofold purpose. Not only is the ADJC staffed by correctional officers, they also have behavioral specialists. The goal is to provide protection to the juvenile and the community while working towards rehabilitation and a positive re-entry for the juvenile. Juveniles who are sentenced to the ADJC go through a screening process to allow individualized treatments based on their specific needs. This allows for individualized services to address each juvenile's risk needs. As the youth makes progress, their program adapts to their new needs. Within the ADJC, they have many different programs and pro-social activities such as Release the Fear, a program where art in the community is the focus, and Mayday Dog program, where the youth participate in behavioral therapy with dogs. ADJC is both a treatment facility who offers a core behavioral treatment program, substance abuse specific treatment, and sex offender specific programming. Again, to both protect the community and serve as rehabilitation for the juveniles. The main focus, however, should not be on reoffending juvenile delinquents. We need to focus on the prevention of the delinquency from the beginning. The risk factor prevention paradigm is a public health approach to minimize the risk of juveniles becoming involved in delinquent behaviors by targeting the risk factors and treating them. Public health surveillance is refining its data to analyze it and separate it from the risk factors. Risk group identification is similar to medical evaluations where risk factors are measured and considered as a predictor for future risk. Risk factor exploration is identifying causal risk factors, and program implementation and evaluation is the identification and implementation of programs and tools that help reduce the overall risk. Breaking down an actual risk factor, as defined by the U.S. Surgeon General, is anything that increases the probability that a person will suffer harm. The risk factor paradigm was originally developed for the public health field before implementation in the juvenile justice field. This approach generically seems like a positive approach to the juvenile delinquents. However, critics have noted that it tends to single out those lower socioeconomic status juveniles and families. Labeling has a negative effect on the youth and the families. However, this approach assigns specific problem areas in the juvenile's lives known as risk. While we know all people have risk, we must be careful when using them as an identifier for youth. The risk factor prevention paradigm is based on known risk factors and can predict the likelihood of delinquency, but it cannot predict with a surety a juvenile will become delinquent. One thing to note is that this approach does not necessarily take into account the differences in culture and context and resilience of each individual youth. There is actually a benefit to risk identification. The benefit to targeting youth before risk factors accumulate. Our approach will target current risk factors and prevent others by early intervention. As with many other things in life, when discussing juvenile delinquency, proactivity is much better than reactivity. So our running theme is that restorative justice aims to restore normalcy and community strength after incidents of delinquency occur. This involves a fair and equal punishment for the perpetrator, as well as an empathetic process between community, victims, and offenders. This process focuses less on punishing behavior and retaliation, or what we would consider a payback, and places more emphasis on mending relationships that have been damaged. Teaching moments and communication are instrumental to this approach instead of the eye for an eye theory. While a culture and a mindset can be embraced in an approach like this, we would like to see interaction with the juvenile to build skills and prevent victimization altogether. Repairing the damage done between the community and the victim is a top priority. Rehabilitation for that delinquent and reintegration is second on the list. Equally as important is creating a positive dialogue between a community and the victim after punishment. If prevention is paramount, then the need for change is now. Mental health concerns, along with youth involved in both dependency and delinquency systems, juveniles and families that are plagued by destitute situations, and a minimal response to status offenders are all areas in which we should be concerned. The majority of these classifiers are static risk factors, meaning there is nothing that can be done to change those factors. This means that they can be treated and addressed, but they can never be erased from the past. Many of these mental health issues, self or their family, low socioeconomic status, and involvement in multiple systems such as dependency, bring with them traumatic experience for the youth that will have some bearing on their delinquency status. In the area of mental health, nearly 3/4 of youth that enter the juvenile justice system have some sort of mental health issue. Our crossover youth, or children involved in the dependency system, such as welfare or programs like foster homes, face multiple challenges that can put them at a higher risk of committing delinquent acts and becoming involved in both the dependency and delinquency system as adults. Status offenses are offenses that are only considered a law due to the age of the person. These can include things such as truancy, underage drinking, breaking curfew, and runaways. These offenses make up 60% of adjudications within the last 10 years. And these offenses generally stem from a breakdown in the systems of families or communities. Status offenses like runaways can also lead to additional trauma and victimization, such as sex trafficking of youth, thus increasing the likelihood of delinquency. Socioeconomic status. Families with low income often qualify for court-appointed attorneys. This leaves them depending on the public defense system, which is overburdened and ill-equipped to handle juvenile cases. Crime generally occurs in higher rates among these low-income communities. So, what will it take to prevent delinquency? Instead of ignoring mental health concerns or focusing only on the risk factors, such as the risk factor prevention paradigm does, we need to treat youth who are living with these mental health conditions and provide them with skills they need to be successful. Instead of treating the offense, the root of the problem must be addressed and treated by building healthy coping skills and offering alternative conflict resolution. Not only do we need to have a restorative mindset and hope to restore broken communities, we must prevent victimization and provide life skills for youth to remain in their homes, attend school, and become resilient adults. Although the socioeconomic status of a child is typically a static factor where youth are caught in a circle of poverty, it can be broken by connecting youth with caring adults. This would increase the likelihood the youth would stay in school, thus leading them to a better education, job skills, or trade school. Building connections that provide mentoring, educational support, after-school programs, and life skills to youth in both dependency and delinquency systems will create change in the course of dependent children's lives as well as prevent delinquency. So let's talk about an action plan for those 30,000 Maricopa County juveniles we spoke about earlier in the slideshow. The Phoenix Union High School District should partner with American Community Correctional Institute to provide life skills development to students in the district. School staff should be identified to act as the group facilitator and coach for these youth. Facilitation takes no certification or training, as the material is provided and answer keys are available that allow for any caring adult to be a coach. Identifying approximately 4 facilitators per school will allow for each teacher to facilitate once a month. Life skill classes can be held after school 1 day a week. Research suggests delinquency occurs at a much higher rate immediately following the school hours on school days. Remember when we talked earlier about individuals creating these delinquency acts because they were bored and because they had less supervision due to 2-parent working households or single-parent household? This is a perfect time to have a child in a life skills class. Teachers may refer students to applicable programming. Consequently, for the classroom disruptions to minor charges such as tobacco on campus, mutual assault where both families agree, and any offense the school sees fit that does not require law enforcement involvement. This will divert youth from the criminal justice system and allow them to stay in the school. ACCI Life Skills provides the following subject matter to youth: self-awareness, anger avoidance, youth substance abuse, youth driver responsibility, youth parents, youth theft shoplifting, youth minor possession, juvenile marijuana awareness, positive thinking, cognitive sexual awareness, substance abuse prevention, cognitive employment for teens, media awareness, dating violence prevention, bully prevention, truancy prevention, distracted drivers, marijuana prevention, leadership, and tobacco awareness. The appropriate choice will be a joint decision between youth, families, and a facilitator, or based on specific teacher referral to the program. ACCI is an evidence-based program that targets criminogenic need and is proven to be effective in reducing recidivism. Implementing the program will provide youth with a caring adult staff facilitator to guide them through challenges, occupy their time with a pro-social activity, keep some troublesome youth in school while at the same time receiving consequences for their negative behavior, and provide youth with basic life skills and subject areas pertaining to them. ACCI reports that a 92% of course completion rate and only 13% recidivism rate has focused their attention to early intervention and prevention, thus enforcing our belief that prevention is essentially the key.